I remember growing up in Jamaica, what they would refer to as the ghetto. But I remember as a child growing up, I didn't look at where I reside as the ghetto because, for the most part, my mother, father did what they had to do. As a matter of fact, my father was well to do in the community, but yet still we reside what they refer to as the ghetto. Back in the 80s, right, early 70s, I mean, growing up as a kid, you grow up in your environment, you become a part of your environment. So you don't really see until you leave that environment how ghetto it was. And even then, I still had some kind of connection to the so-called ghetto. Then at 8 years old, came to United Snakes of America, the corporation, and we first reside in Queens, New York. As I got older, I ventured out on my own around maybe 16, 17, and I went to live in the Bronx with my kid's mother at the age of 18. And I remember also living in Brooklyn, New York, also in the hood. So I lived in the project in the Bronx and in the project in Brooklyn. But even then, it didn't seem like the hood because, again, we're a product of our environment. So as time went on, I got older and I decided I wanted something better for my kids, take them out of the hood. We decided to move in the suburbs. And it's not until we moved to the suburbs, I look back at, from the time growing up, living in the so-called hood, the ghetto, how really and truly, how fortunate we were, I guess a step up, moving into a step up. So in other words, from the so-called ghetto to the suburbs, on the surface, it looked like it was something better than what we had in the hood. But now that I'm older, and I'm still living in the suburbs, if you will, frequent the hood often, I realize no matter where the fuck you go, whether you're in the hood or in the suburbs, once you have this skin complexion, this skin complexion that these hybrid envy us for, no matter where you go, you're still a target. Even if you go in another country, other than, let's say, maybe Africa, right? Where at least you see many of your own people. But if you go to a European country with this skin complexion, like I said, these hybrid that envy us for, you're a target. So I guess hopefully one day some of this Bible is true, where we're going to be redeemed. The Most High chosen people are going to be redeemed from this hellhole, and we will look back when we're, I guess, taken from this fucking prison planet to somewhere else, and we'll look back and say, wow, for how many years of my life I lived in the ghetto on this prison planet amongst these demons, these hybrids that's running amok. So we hear of another shooting, right? Hours before the verdict of George Floyd murderer is another shooting, this time of a young lady. Now, to be honest with you, family, I think many of y'all are going to be upset with me in this particular video, but it is what it is. The shooting, for me, I don't think it was justified. Why? Because I've seen other instances where you have knife-wielding hybrids, right? So-called white people wielding knives, chasing the police officer, and you have the police officer running away from them. Why? Because their intent is to spare their lives because they look like them, their species. But when it comes to us, young, old, doesn't matter. The Bible did prophesy that, they wouldn't have any regard for the young or old. We're like animals for them, they're hunting us. Now I do understand, and this is where y'all gonna lose me, that this young lady posed a threat on the other young lady. We don't know the circumstance as to why Micaiah, or whatever her name is, felt the need to defend herself with a knife. But I did see who they now allege is her father kicking a young lady while she was on the ground. I don't know if he made contact, but at the end of the day, for me to see that, it's fucked up. Because even if, let's say, one of my daughter got into a confrontation with other females being jumped. I am not going to step in and use my foot on another human being, especially a female. So a lot of y'all might beg me differ, but for me, I don't think I would have done that. I would have probably stepped in front of what's going on. But I do understand sometimes in situations, emotions is running wild. You don't really think. And as for that young lady that was wielding the knife, she didn't make contact with the knife. But again, for me, personally, I think she shouldn't have had a knife, because with that knife, for example, right? I'm a concealed carry. I have a concealed carry permit. Matter of fact, I have it on. I have my firearm on me now, right? Because I have to protect my cargo. I have to protect my persons, which is me. Now, before I got this firearm permit, I went to extensive training, right? 3 months training, how to use a firearm, the responsibility of owning a firearm, and I had got background check. I even got FBI check, all that, because I have clearances that I have to, meet. And the training was extensive, and I learned a lot about de-escalation, which a lot of these devils, these hybrid, do not perform or practice, I should say. You know what I'm saying? They escalate, and a lot of time people wonder, why is it that they always shoot more than once? Believe it or not, family, in the firearm training, if you're faced with a threat, right, of bodily harm or even death, you can shoot more than once. I never understood it until I had the training, why these devils like to shoot overkill. But if you got someone running away from you or with their hands in their head, they're not a threat, so you shouldn't be shooting at least once. And this young lady, unfortunately, she had a knife in her hand. She was about to attack another human being, and I guess the the slave patrol officer felt the need to I guess eliminate the threat, which again, because of the training that I have, I do understand why they think the way they think. Now, some might say, well, she's a kid, she don't deserve, to be gunned down. I agree. He could have used a taser. Would a taser been effective, quick enough to disarm her, disable her from, bringing forth harm on the other individual? Maybe, maybe not, who knows? But these demons are trained, family. These devils are trained to kill, especially when someone look like us. With other people, right? It's more or less a de-escalation. How often do you see on the news where you have Asians getting gunned down with their hands in their hair? Or even Africans? I'm telling you, family, it's so crazy that I've yet to see an African, a foreigner. They call me a foreigner, Jamaican, right? I have not yet seen a foreigner getting gunned down. And I'm asking myself, why? How come it's always so-called African American, descendant of the transatlantic slave trade, the Mosai chosen people? Why are they targeting African Americans, both old and young? You ever notice that shit? Very rare do I see an African, an Asian, an Indian. I'm not talking about the redskin. I'm talking about the East Indians. I don't see none of them getting gunned down. Very, very rare you might see an African. But every time on the news, you always hearing the dialect, them speaking so-called English, right? I don't see any Africans. I don't see any Muslims. Except for the mass shooting that occurred the other day where you had this fucking hybrid, lost them. Every time they do criminal activities, always mental illness, right? But other than that, I'm telling you, family, so are they targeting y'all? I say y'all because, I'm Jamaican, and I'm sure we all are the same people. We were dispersed because the original, in other words, the people that were dispersed to the Caribbean, they came from Turtle Island, which is the United States of America, right? The slaves that was causing problems for the slave master, they took them to the Caribbean to cut sugar cane as a form of punishment to deal with the sugarcane rat and the sugarcane snake. But we are the same people, but for some reason they are targeting so-called African American. Now again, did this girl deserve to lose her life? I don't think she deserved to be gunned down in the way she did. Even one shot could have stopped her in her track, but this man let out 4 shots on this young lady. And again, you also have to consider, if that would have been your daughter that was threatened by someone wielding a knife, how would you have reacted? Would you be saying that she don't deserve death? Because if that would have been your daughter that almost got killed, I'm sure many of y'all would have been like, good for her. You know what I'm saying? She deserve it. So sometimes we gotta look at the glass half full, sometimes half empty. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Do you think it was a justified shooting? For me, because of the training that I have gotten, you know what I'm saying, as far as realizing that there are circumstances where you have to use deadly force to match deadly force. She did have a knife, but I would say the first thing he should have did was gotten maybe a fucking taser, like the other Neanderthal bitch that says taser, taser, but she pull out a gun. Now that's a murderer right there. That's a cold-blooded murderer. That's a heartless demon, and I hope they deal with her accordingly. Now she definitely deserved 70 years or life in jail, because that's a murdering bitch. But this officer this slave patrol officer on the other hand, I don't know, family. I'm torn because again, the young lady, she had a knife in her hand, and I'm gonna be honest with you, if that young lady had a knife in her hand and attacking one of my kids and possibly could have hurt or killed one of my daughters, I would have been like, hey, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes judgment come not the way you want it, not who you want it to come to, but nonetheless, judgment is judgment. All right, that's why we have to train our children, teach our children, not train, you train dogs and shit. You teach your kids to be a certain way. Like I told you earlier in the video, I lived in the ghetto, I lived in the hood, but I didn't let the hood become a part of me. You know what I'm saying? I was able to come out of the ghetto, come out of the hood, and was able to function, elsewhere. But the thing about it is that, because we have this skin complexion, this beautiful melanated skin complexion that these hybrids are jealous of, we're always going to be a target. And this is why you have to train your kids, teach your kids to love, not hate. That's the problem with the black community. There's so much fucking hate amongst one another. We already got so many enemies. We got, enemies from everywhere. I don't even want to classify them in this video, but you know what I'm talking about. So why are we fighting against each other? To see that young lady with a knife ready to take, to threaten this person with bodily harm, I felt some type of way. And unfortunately, she lost her life. It wasn't like, she was innocent 100% in this game. You know what I'm saying? She really wasn't, family. I hate to say she wasn't. She had a knife. It looks to me like she was ready to do some harm towards the other young lady. And then you had allegedly the father trying to kick or stomp out another female on the ground. So I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in this video, baby. I don't really want to say too much because I don't want y'all start talking shit about me, like, why are you defending the police? I'm not defending the police. Y'all know I don't like these motherfuckers. I'm gonna put that shit on record. I do not like the police because they don't like me. If they like me, I would like them. I don't like the police because the police initially were slave patrol, right? That was a job to go around and gather up runaway slaves. That's their responsibility. So them now having a new brand or a new name doesn't mean that they're any different. They still got that spirit. Once they put that badge on and have the instrument of that, which is a gun, and I'm not a hypocrite because I do, oftentimes carry my firearm for protection on me, and that's because it's not by choice, it's by necessity. But anyway, family, I gotta go. With that, I say shalom.